Good morning. Today we are going to discuss about one important topic in environment impact assessment, that is known as the life cycle analysis. Okay, life cycle analysis. So what do you mean by life cycle analysis? Whenever you are considering any product, okay, consider any product starting from the beginning of the stage of product manufacture. The evaluator is tracking the entire life cycle of that particular product. In other words, it is known as a cradle to grave analysis. Cradle means, you know what is meant by a cradle. When a baby is born, the baby will be sleeping in a cradle. And to grave, grave means where the dead bodies are destroyed or dead bodies are cremated, right? So from the initial stage of beginning of the life of the particular product to its final stage, what are the events occurring and what are the environmental impacts occurring to this particular product during its entire life cycle. Okay, you are analyzing the life cycle. So that is the life cycle assessment or life cycle analysis. So this cradle to grave analysis or life cycle assessment, it is having the abbreviation of LCA. Let us see in detail about the life cycle assessment. Okay. So life cycle analysis, it is the technique used to analyze the environmental impacts. Okay, you have to analyze the environmental impacts and you have one technique for analyzing the environmental impacts. And at what stage you have to analyze the environmental impact, which is the outcome of the processes involved in the life cycle of a particular product. You are considering a particular product, considering the life cycle of that particular products, what are the different outcomes involved in the life cycle of that particular product. You are analyzing the environmental impacts. So it is also known as a cradle to grave or life cycle assessment, that is LCA. Now the stages of life cycle analysis. When you consider the life cycle of any product, the different stages, different principal stages in the life cycle of any product include, here you can see that life cycle assessment, raw material collection. From the nature, you have to extract the raw materials. Okay, the raw materials required will be extracted. Then product design and manufacture of the product using the raw material. After extraction of raw material, the required product need to be designed and the design need to be implemented for manufacturing. Now, once the product is manufactured, the product need to be transported for distribution. Okay, to different sites, the product need to be distributed. So for distribution of the product, it need to be transported. Next one is use or consumption and maintenance of the product. The product need to be used, consumed and maintained. And finally, the recycling waste management, how the waste involved in the production of that particular item is managed. It includes the recycling processes and final disposal, how the final products are getting disposed. So this is the different stages of life cycle analysis. The principal stages include extraction of raw materials, product design and manufacture, transportation for distribution, then consumption and maintenance of the product, and finally you have the waste management. Now, what are the goals and purposes of life cycle analysis? So during the life cycle of a particular product, what is the quality of input and output material? So a product manufacturing includes some form of input material, input processes or input materials and some form of output. Okay. So during the life cycle analysis, what is done? A detailed analysis of the quality of input and output of the material will be done. Then the inputs and outputs will be quantified. What are the various environmental implications that will be assessed? Now, using the information collected, the various processes involved in the life cycle of a product will be applied to improve the information collected. Now, for making public policies and for achieving sustainability, these are the different goals and purposes of life cycle analysis. There are three types of life cycle analysis. One is attributional life cycle analysis, consequential life cycle analysis, and social life cycle analysis. We'll see in detail about the different types of life cycle analysis. Now, this is very important, the different main phases of life cycle analysis. So there are four main phases in a life cycle analysis. What are the four main phases of life cycle analysis? First one is goal and scope definition. You have to define what is the goal or what is the scope of conducting this life cycle analysis. Secondly, there is another step known as the inventory analysis. Third one is the impact assessment, and final one is the interpretation. These four terms are highly important. First one is goal and scope definition. Second one is inventory analysis. You can note down these terms because this question may be asked. What is a life cycle analysis? What are the phases in life cycle analysis? Goal and scope definition, inventory analysis, impact assessment, and final one is interpretation. So let us see in detail about the four phases. First one is goal and scope definition. You have to determine the boundaries for study. Okay, what is the particular area or what is the scope of this particular work? So to what extent should be the study going, or what should be the extent of spread of this study that you call as the goal and scope definition. I told that what are the input and output quantities for the particular process, that is very much relevant. So a data on the input and output quantities need to be obtained. You call it as the inventory analysis. Next one is impact assessment. Okay, so impact assessment means during the different stages in the life of this particular product, during the different stages of life of this particular product, what are the impact? So the impact, contribution to impact includes what is the energy consumption, all these things. So impact assessment is very much important. And final one is interpretation. How you will interpret, what are the major contributions, sensitivity analysis. So all these things will be included. So these are the phases in life cycle analysis: goal and scope definition, inventory analysis, impact assessment, and interpretation. So let us see about the life cycle inventory analysis. I told that what are the inputs and outputs of one particular product, that is very much important. So the different stages in the manufacturing of process is given inside these boxes. First one is material acquisition. The raw materials required for the manufacturing process need to be collected. Second one is formulation, processing, and manufacturing. Okay, what is the design, what is the process to be done, and finally manufacturing need to be done. Once a manufactured product is ready, then what is the next step? This product should be sent for distribution, right? This product is prepared as part of the market requirement. So definitely distribution of product is very, very important step. So product distribution comes. Then use of the product. Once the product is distributed to the different consumers, the consumers will be using this product. Once the product is used, there may be some cases where the product need to be recycled, or some cases where the product components or materials need to be, which is remaining as waste, that need to be managed. So these are the different stages involved in the manufacture of the product: material acquisition, formulation, processing and manufacturing, product distribution, product use, recycle products, components, materials, etc., and finally waste management. Now, what are the different inputs and outputs? The different inputs include materials. What are the different materials required for the manufacturing? Next one is energy. For the product distribution, what is the energy requirement? Then for the use of product, how much water is required, and finally air. The different outputs from this process include the principal products, co-products, water effluents, airborne emissions, solid waste, and other environmental interactions. So these are the outputs of this life cycle inventory analysis. So first step include the goal and scope definition. Second one include the inventory analysis, life cycle inventory analysis. Third one is the impact assessment. Third step is impact assessment. So what is the particular environmental implication of the process and how significant is the environmental implication? This need to be evaluated. So impact assessment stage includes the evaluation of the significance of the environmental implication. So what do you mean by this impact? Impact means it is a set of some consequences on human health. We have already discussed, we have already completed the concept of health risk assessment. So we know that how the impact of one particular product on the health is assessed. Okay, we have seen the dose response characteristics, we have seen the hazard characteristics, hazard identification. So there were different stages in the health risk assessment. Okay, so the impact, how it is impacting the health, that is need to be, and also the welfare of flora and fauna and future availability of resources. So this is the impact assessment. And last one is interpretation. Interpretation means from the life cycle inventory and life cycle impact assessment. These were the second and third step. Life cycle inventory analysis was the second step, and third step is the life cycle impact assessment. What is the output or what is the result obtained from this life cycle inventory and life cycle impact assessment? This data need to be checked and evaluated. This information need to be processed. Now this interpretation phase, in this interpretation phase, the result obtained need to be summarized. And this interpretation is required in order to check the accuracy of the result. What is the accuracy of the result? That need to be checked and that need to be communicated accurately. So this is the interpretation. It's a method to identify, quantify, check, and evaluate the information collected from the life cycle inventory and life cycle impact assessment. The interpretation phase includes the summarization of the results in the above two phases. So interpretation is required to check the accuracy of the results and communicate them accurately. So there are certain advantages and disadvantages for the LCA. So advantages include, for all the steps within the life cycle of a product, you are considering the different steps in the life cycle of the product, and for all the step analysis is done. Then LCA will be offering quantitative comparisons. This LCA can be an effective marketing tool. Okay, if you are using appropriately, LCA can act as an effective marketing tool. And in industry and regulatory organizations, life cycle analysis is becoming a very hot issue. These are the different advantages of LCA. Coming to the different disadvantages of LCA, if the product, we are dealing with different kinds of product. If the product is a complicated one, completing a full cycle, a full life cycle analysis of one particular product is not easy. So actually, if the scope of the work, first step in life cycle analysis include defining the scope. So if the scope or goal is very broad, then the life cycle analysis process will become more and more complicated. Sometimes there may be some problem with data associated with the different stages. Okay, you need to have all the data required, but this data availability is a constraint. So that is another disadvantage of life cycle analysis. Now the life cycle analysis will be depending on the specific product or process, and it will be highly time sensitive. And there is no global standards fixed for the life cycle analysis. These are the different disadvantages of life cycle analysis. So we have seen the different steps in the life cycle analysis. What are the different stages in life cycle analysis? If you remember, we have to define the scope or goal, then inventory analysis, impact assessment, and final one is interpretation. These are the 4 steps. So on a conclusion note, we can say that life cycle analysis helps to improve the environmental condition by proper analysis and proper steps taken. Okay, we'll discuss more regarding the life cycle analysis. Okay, so you got some basic idea. We'll continue.